video about how to trace or draw on Illustrator for your icons, I just wanted to explain how to use the color tools as well, just quickly, a basic rundown of how to use those, and just a quick run through of some of the other shapes so that you know you can use those to add other details to your work. So we'll do the shapes first because it's quick. We have the shape tool over here now. Again, I've got my window workspace set up as Essentials Classic, so I have all of the information. And if I click down and hold on my shape tool, I'll see I have a number of different shape tools. Rectangle tool, rounded rectangle tool, ellipse tool, polygon tool, and star tool. I showed you a few ways you can use the tools last time. I'm just going to draw out 3 of these, and you can see the rounded rectangle tool you don't really need to use, and I'll show you why. But I'll just quickly go through a couple of these. So rectangle, ellipse, and then your polygon tool. Now, the polygon tool makes a 6-sided shape initially. I'm just going to delete that. If I click on the page, I can choose how many sides I want. This is the way to make a triangle. That's the easiest way to make a triangle, but you can make a side with as many different shapes as you want. You really probably won't use the star tool, and you definitely won't use the flare tool, so forget that one. Star tool makes stars. Again, you can click and choose how many points. You can use the star tool to make a triangle as well if you click 3 points. But other than that, these are probably the main tools you'll use. And the reason you don't need to use a rounded rectangle tool is because we have these things called widgets here, these little circles. And if you click on these and drag, that will round off your edges anyway. If you just want to round off one, double click on that one and you can round off that edge. Pretty good. Ellipse tool works in much the same way. If you have your view and you have your smart guides on, your smart guides are the things that sort of allow you to align your shapes and they're the little pink lines basically that come up. When you're drawing an ellipse, you'll also see these will show you when your shape is a perfect circle. You'll get that cross in the middle of it. But again, you can, kind of move that into any shape, move it around, etc. Triangle, same, it has widgets as well. I think if we zoom in, you'll see, or if we go to the direct selection tool. So for whatever reason, just on selection tool, it only shows you the one widget, but if we go over to our direct selection tool, which we know already gives us a lot of control, I will have the individual widgets so I can just do one curved shape there. The other thing, again, with your direct selection tool to be aware of, much like we were using the shapes, or the lines, I should say, moving the lines around, you can move your anchor points around, so you can double click on these. Sorry, I didn't double click, and you can move those in any sort of direction that you want them to go to alter the shape. Same goes up here. You could change it into something like that. And same goes for this as well. So if you really want to play around with shapes. I'm not sure you will, but you can do that. The other thing, as I showed you before, if you want to join your shapes together, go back to our selection tool. I'm going to drag my selection tool over the shapes I want to select. If I have a lot of shapes and I'm struggling to just select the ones that I want, I can't really drag them over because I've got this shape here too and I don't want to select it. What I can do is just hold down the shift key and click on the shapes that I want and they'll both be selected. Over here to our shape builder tool, again, draw through to make the shape. The other thing I can do with the shape builder tool is if I hold my option key down, you'll see that the cursor on the shape builder tool has a little plus next to it. If I hold the option key down, it goes to a minus, and actually whatever I drag through, I delete. So I can make some irregular shapes. I could do that in here as well. So again, select both of them, use my shape builder tool, hold the option key down, drag through the shapes that I don't want, and I can sort of make irregular shapes that way as well. So that's kind of a general rundown of your shapes. The other thing to be aware of is your colors. So I know some of you won't use any color, and that's totally fine. But if you want to use color, how do we use color? Well, color really only works if you're making a shape. So there is a caveat to that I'll show you in a second. Rectangle tool, we draw our rectangles. We've got, if I've got my window on my proper workspace, Centers Classic, this is my fill, the colour that goes inside my shape. This is my stroke. This is the line that goes on the outside of my shape. I can also see it up here, stroke and fill. That gives me the width of my stroke or the weight of my stroke. And I also have some information about my colour palette up here as well. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can fill up here and it gives you a selection. I can double click on my fill down here and I can have more of a gradient option. And I can also use my colour picker up here. Do the same thing with my stroke. It just needs to be at the front, so I need to click on it, double click, change it here, or change it here. Now with my organic shapes, say I have been drawing with my pen tool and I've made a lovely kind of curved shape. You'll see it starts to fill this, and I mentioned it before. So I could actually do that and it will fill it, it's fine. It won't work if I use my brush tool, sorry. I can try and fill it, but you can see it doesn't have, whoops. It won't necessarily, okay. In this case it did, sometimes it doesn't. So just be aware of that. Usually it wants it to be a closed path, but there you go, I've shown you 2 examples where we didn't have to worry about that. So if you don't want a fill, click on your fill and click on the none symbol. If you don't want a stroke, you can do the same thing. Obviously, we won't be able to see our shapes. You need to have a stroke or a fill or a combination of both, but don't have nothing. Sometimes when we can't see our shapes, it's because it's taken off the stroke and the fill, so you just need to double check that. That's essentially it. So there's no, just to be aware, there is no fill bucket. People often ask me that in Illustrator, is there a fill? There is no like paint bucket, I should say, like there is in Paint. You need to select your shape and select your fill here, here, or over here. If you have 2 shapes, this is the last thing I'll talk to you about. If you have 2 shapes and you want them to be the same colour, but it's a little bit tricky because you came up here and you just selected the gradient and it does give you the colour code. But let's pretend it's not there and you want it to be the exact same colour. Click on the shape that you want to fill. Go to this tool, the eyedropper tool. Click on the colour you want and it'll fill the shape that you've got selected. Simple as that. And that's all about colour. As you know, you're only going to be using really basic colours and you're only probably going to use 2 or 3. But that's something to be aware of.